Right, morena everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Environment, Regulatory and Operations Committee, which we'll refer to as EROC for the rest of the day. Even though I hate anagrams, it's going to be a good one for me to use. So we'll start with opening karakia. Tuia ki runga, tuia ki raro, tuia ki roto, tuia ki waho, te tātou te tangata, ki te kaupapa o te huanei, ki te kaupapa o te rangi nei, mori ora, tēnā koutou, kia tātou katoa. So it's translated as bind above, bind below, bind within, bind beyond, bind us the people to the purpose of our meeting, to the purpose of this day, breathe life into all of us. So welcome everybody, including those on Zoom. A reminder that this meeting is being live streamed and will be available on the Council's YouTube channel. Please keep your microphones muted unless speaking and hands up for questions. And please also remember that you need to use your microphone when you are speaking because we do have people on Zoom. So we have the toilets are out in the foyer through those doors to your left. And fire exits are marked here, and if we meet in the car park, I think is the assembly station outside. And if you need the hearing assistance hardware, that's on the wall just near the public forum, and might need some eye-seeing assistance today actually. So we have a couple of apologies for Councillor Maru, who's not apologising, and we may have the Mayor who's on other council business popping in and out. We're unsure if he's going to make it. So can I please I'll move those apologies. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ferniehoe, thank you. We have no public forum today and no late items. Do we have any declarations of interest for today's meeting? We haven't received any so far. No, excellent, thank you. Right, so next we move on to the confirmation of minutes. That the minutes of the Environment, Regulatory and Operations Committee held on Thursday the 26th of February 2026 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting. Happy to move. Councillor Butler is moving. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Morgan, thank you. And for the confidential minutes of the same date, do I have a mover? And a seconder, Councillor Ferniehoe and Councillor Malling. So thank you everybody. I just wanted to introduce Leif sitting next to me. He's sitting in the chair. Rob is currently away on leave. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank him for sitting up beside us today. And I'd also like to mention too, we have Mirka and Katrina in the room, and they are sharing Rob's role while he's away. So thank you both for stepping into that, and I hope you're enjoying it, having extra work on your plate. So thank you very much. So where are we at now? We have a report from Katrina, first on our agenda. So we've all read your report, thanks Katrina, but if you'd like to highlight what's important on it for us, thank you.
Morning councillors, through the chair. Yeah, the report is read, but I thought I'd just go through a few updates and just correct a couple of errors as well. Even though this report is a 6-monthly report, I do try between the period of July and December 2025, I do try and keep it up to date and provide some up-to-date information as I come here in April. But just a couple of errors that were in there on page 2, 4.1, that year was supposed to be 2025, not 26. And the decisions issued is 406, not 411. Obviously, I can't count. Maths isn't my forte. So just wanted to give a few updates moving through. So LIMS, as you may have seen in the report, had a number for March. I can give you a bit more of an update. We've actually received a record and issued a record of LIMS this month, of 131 issued and 113 received. We usually sit around 80 or 90, so that's a pretty massive jump in the LIMS space. Through to a few other highlights, we've also got the Tasman Bay Estate subdivision. That's 58 lots. That an update on that. It was granted, that subdivision, 31st of March. So they have 15 working days to appeal if there's any appeal on that one. And then just some notes to make around consent applications and decisions. We have been reasonably consistent over the last few years. There hasn't been a real peak or big trough or anything like that. However, at the beginning of this budget round, I did anticipate maybe there was going to be a bit of a drop-off given the economy. It's really hard to probably put a finger in the sky and sometimes figure out what applications are going to come in the door and what they aren't through the markets, etc. But it's seen that basically because due to that, the revenue and income has been a little bit higher than probably expected, which is not too bad. As far as unallocated consents, I had in my report, as when I wrote that report, there was 43. We've managed to get that down to 24, so that's a big improvement as far as consent sitting there waiting to get to a planner to process. At the moment, as far as active consents in-house, because we do rely on contractors due to workload and experience over the years, that the active consents we've got in the house at the moment, working on about 350. Ones that were with contractors at the moment, we've got about 140 consents with contractors. We are reviewing the contracts at the moment through a procurement panel, and that's going out in May. One key thing over the years, I'm sure the councillors have been around for a few rounds of being in council, that staff experience has been a pretty massive thing in resource consents as far as getting a full team. We have this round recruited 2 senior planners, which is really exciting in our land use and subdivision team. So we're almost at full capacity, which is really good. So I'm hoping to see some improvements around those stat days moving forward. But overall, it has been a pretty busy period around notifieds, appeals and objections and some hearings. So I'll leave it at that. But if you've got any questions, happy to take those.
Thank you, Katrina. Well done on getting some planners. I know that they're as rare as unicorns these days, trying to get them employed in the local government space. So well done on that. Do we have any questions? Councillor Wheniho.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Katrina, for the report. I'm just wondering if you have any indication as to why March would be showing such a record high for LIM requests?
Yeah, I mean, I can't put my finger on that. There'd be multiple factors that may be playing out in the market around housing. Whether people wanting to get LIMs for natural hazard reasons, it could be due that people wanting to buy rather than build. It's really hard to probably put your finger on that pulse and go, I know why. It is interesting.
Thank you. Councillor Milling.
Good morning, Katrina, and thank you for your report. As I sent you an email earlier, in relation to 8.2, the outstanding objections for irrigators on the Waimea Plains, I think they've been outstanding for nearly 3 years.
I'll let Leif start with this and see.
Well, I haven't asked. I think it's 3 years.
Yes,
And so what sort of a timeline and when can we expect some progress on those? Because we recently had a cease take that affected those, so it'd be nice to get it resolved at some stage.
Through the chair, we've been caught by a change in legislation. The government, in its wisdom, introduced a new section of the RMA called 123C, which basically extended all consents which were on section 124, so they were operating while they were getting renewed, or consents that were going to expire before the 31st of December 2027. So consents that were operating, which we had appeals on, have suddenly become live consents again until the end of 2027. We're currently trying to figure out what to do with them like the rest of the country. The issue with consents on the plains is that we're limited in what we can use to do a cease take. Previously, we've done a section 329, which was a significant water shortage order. The problem with the dam is we can't use a significant water shortage order now, unless there's a significant water shortage, which there won't be or unlikely to be. So staff are currently working on what options we've got. Potentially, we may have to go down the track of doing a section 128 or a variation, us doing a variation. But we may also, or debating about going back to the consent holders and saying, actually, you know what the playing field is now. There's a good chance you're going to get a consent. If you wait till 2027, you don't know what the plan is going to say, and you may not be able to renew your consent. So there's some risk stuff in there for the consent holders as well. So we're just working on what our options are at the moment.
Obviously, you'll update us in the future.
Of course. Explaining a section 128. A section 128 is where the council goes along and says, actually, we think there's a significant issue with your consent or the environmental effects associated with your consent, and we'd like to review it. The challenge with a section 128 is the costs fall on us rather than the applicant.
Thank you. Councillor Walker?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report. I'm referring to the number 4.16, and it does state that the consents currently is within budget. Even when you take into the discount penalties, you're still working within the balanced budget, which is great to know. However, then you put a little however in the next sentence, and that is around the unknown costs that could impact the budget with regards to appeals, objections, or judicial challenges. How many of those are likely? Like, have we got some on the radar? The fact you've put that in there makes me concerned that there's something that we don't quite know about, or the potential that they could grow, which then obviously will impact your budget. And we're sitting here, as you would know, studying our long-term plan workshops and looking at facts and figures, services, level of. So can you clarify where we sit with that risk factor, please?
Yeah, sure, through the chair. In the report, I have indicated the appeals we have got going on at the moment. So there are a couple sitting there. So there are costs associated with that came through. But it's that big word of unknown, that there could be appeals on certain consents that we are not, that aren't budgeted basically for, because appeal costs basically fall down on council, and there's highly unlikely we generally can recover those costs of an appeal process. And also in the budgets I do every year, put a reasonable amount in there for legal advice as well around that kind of, so that kind of is the budget that sits there probably for those appeal things. So yeah, every year we do get at least, we seem to on an average get at least one good appeal a year, and some that kind of drag over the years.
If I may, through the chair, just a point of clarification. So as in our governance role, we obviously see the names in the report today, which I have to say I was a bit surprised to have the people named in a public document. But anyway, that aside, in our governance role, we only get to hear about it in a report. So is there somewhere in the system that if there's a trigger that it's going to end up tracking down that way, which is going to cost legal fees, that we could know about it prior?
We would try and keep you involved through the legal team as far as involved as noted what is happening. Generally not, unless it's going to have an impact on the budget and we need a council approval for making a certain decision under a legal process. and we bring it through council, which we have in the past on some.
Thank you. Next on my list is Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. Morning. My question was around there's clearly a lot of work in the program over the last 6 months. Last week, we've been talking a lot about planning processes, policy, productivity, efficiency, and the cost of the process. I'm interested to know, and through the report, two things. One, if you, and I know it's driven by, statute, much of it, but are you seeing any ways that we might be able to improve productivity, efficiency, or are there any key trends in your ongoing six monthly reporting that should be coming through to council for information discussion about how we might affect change?
Through the chair, I can answer from a resource consents team. We do constantly look at improvements around our processes and efficiencies. For example, strengthening our pre-application processes and 88 returning applications if they're incomplete, and working with applicants. So we are, as a team, and having 2 seniors come on board, and each team is going to be valuable as well. So as a group, as a section, resource consents, we work as much as we can to improve those efficiencies. We are a bit hamstrung sometimes by the systems that surround us within the council and information. But moving forward, there's a lot of unknowns around national direction and RM, kind of where that's going to sit. And we just need to keep ourselves informed and part of those processes and working with the policy team.
My second question is around where TDC takes water from the Waimea system. And presumably, do we have to get a consent for that ourselves, or are we just drawing down? Yes or no?
I might just get the chair to answer.
You're doing both.
Yeah.
Clarification.
Outside the scope of what's in the report, but Leif's going to answer that.
Richard's the consent holder. He holds a large number of shares in the dam, and also we actually have a lot of ability via the consent process to take water for urban supply.
So we can draw under our current rights in the system, and so we don't have a conflict of interest in terms of we're taking water before anyone else because we've got rights. It's an interesting area now because we've got people that have rights, the irrigators and TDC, but we still have to make a decision on what's appropriate for takes in the Waimea catchment, where the water table is against the minimum flows, etc. And people that don't have rights, well, they're getting cut, right, in some areas. So in our system, the independence of that decision making, could you just comment on that?
Sorry, I'm not quite sure.
Well, there has to be.
Are you asking about who makes the decisions on?
Yes, who
water?
Because we're an interested party, because we take, and so do the irrigators. There's others that don't have rights, but they're under a wider system. It's quite complex. So I'm just wanting to be clear on who makes decisions in that regard.
Okay, through the chair. We have a policy framework which is set up for various catchments, and that examines how much water should be left for the environment and how much can be taken.
Yep.
Previously, we've had an over-allocation in a lot of catchments, or I'll say a paper over-allocation because they're slightly different. So the plan through a public process sets up how much water can be taken. The plan also sets up a framework about what that water can be used for some situations. So it has a ranking. So, for example, human health comes above irrigation. What you need to be aware of is that irrigation uses lots of water. So for 1 hectare of land, to irrigate grass is about 350 cubic meters per week. That's probably equivalent to 80 homes. So there's a big difference in water usage and efficiency. So what we do is we have a plan to set up the framework, and at the moment previously we've been over allocated, and we have a policy that says you can renew your consents within this volume or this amount of water we've got, and there's key measures in that. So for example, your soil type, your area, and how much water you've been using previously, all set up this framework. So if you've got 1 hectare, you can't get as much water as someone who's got 10. So it's all about pulling it back under the MPS for fresh water to get an appropriate allocation. Now, our allocations changed significantly when we got a dam in the Waimea Plains, so more water was available. We do have other areas where we run waiting lists. So, for example, if people say in Upper Taka, Upper Tapawera, Upper Mock, I want water, and there's half a dozen people waiting for water that is, if something becomes available or someone's consent drops, they'll get that. So it's quite an advanced process by effectively the rest of the country because we've had to. We've been water short a long time. The challenge for consents in the next 7 years is what's going to happen with the Natural Environment Act and the Planning Act. We're going to have to run effectively 2 systems. We'll run the current TRMP, and we'll develop a new system. So we'll develop a spatial plan, we'll develop the district plans or the environment plans that sit below that, and then we'll have to go from the TRMP to the new systems. And that's probably in the next 7 years or thereabouts. The problem is there's lots of unknowns in all of that at the moment, and we don't quite know how all that's going to work. And we'll be talking to you in a few weeks' time about the implications of that on the long-term plan. Because we're going to have to develop new processes, new policies, and a whole lot of other stuff, which is going to cost time and money while still processing resource consents.
Thank you, Mr.
Hang on a moment. Mr. Kirby, you wanted to add something to that?
Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to answer your question about consents that are granted. We have to apply to Leif's team basically for a consent for any abstraction that we have. And you will recall prior to the dam, we had certain limitations, and we then had to put restrictions on everybody to kind of stick within those limitations. So we were treated like any other applicant for abstracting water. Yeah. So there's a firewall between the regional council function and the Three Waters function or district council function.
So, Mr. Chairman, my only other comment around this, and it'll be really good to understand what's been shared there, because looking forward economically, the economic driver in the land is water. I'm not sure that we're considering allocating the water to where there's not only land but capital to develop it, to generate revenue for the district. So I'll be interested to understand that going forward further, because from a planning point of view, I'm not a great supporter of lifestyle blocks that are not unproductive land. Full stop. So we'll have that debate later.
Certainly will, I'm sure. Okay, moving on to Councillor Woods and then Nubar. I'm also looking for a mover and a seconder. Reminder too, thank you.
Thank you, and happy to move. Just looking ahead, and with your immediate problems around staff retention, staff experience and workloads, we've got the digital innovation investment going on. Are you given access to that program, and are you having input in how to make the systems more efficient and less demanding on our staff?
Yeah, we sure are. They do go through a bit of a program and reach out to those departments and look at those priorities. And if you've done some work within your team and you know your end-to-end processes and know where there's some issues, which we have done, we identified one key area that which successfully we've gone live and we're working in it. It's called Recon, resource consents, but it's basically for contributors within the resource consent process. We have about 13 people, could have 13 people, not usually on one consent, but within council that comment on a resource consent. So we've actually improved that process to put it into a dashboard area. So we've got a bit more transparency across comments, and it's so we can manage the time it's taking them to come back. So we're finding some of those, there was delays in getting comments on consents as well. So we've worked with the DIP, Digital Innovation Program team, and Harakiki and all that to develop that program. We kind of want to work on one, maybe improvement at a time. If we take on too many at a time, it could be a bit too much, but we've successfully got that now going live. So that's one, for example. So yes, we do work with that team.
Thank you. Yeah, I think the investment's great, and I fully support the investment into the digital innovation. What we're trying to determine is the gains we make from that efficiency. So if you see the gains, it'd be really good if we can have them back to us as a governance group and see that we're actually making a return on that investment. But thank you for that. That's great. Cheers.
Yeah, and just through the chair to add to that, we are working on some LIM improvements as well for the LIMs, because we have a lot of contributors into the LIM process as well, but we can only charge a fixed fee. So we're trying to make that as efficient as we can. So it's a huge project is property information and quality of that information at council. That's a pretty massive project, and taking ownership around that for the wider business as a council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Neuber.
That's perfect. Yeah, thank you. You touched on the topic of the Planning Act that's looming or coming, or whichever way we want to call it. So these legislative changes that are coming, I understand that it'll shift a lot more activities into the permitted activity space. Does that have an impact on the workload for consent planners going forward?
Given what we're hearing nationally, yes, it will have an impact as far as reducing some land use consents and more permitted activities. We're going to go into that a little bit more in our group of activities information for you as well. Just giving an idea in there, but yeah, I suppose that's the short answer.
So does that have any implications on staffing decisions that you make today?
Well, I don't believe so at this point. I mean, time will tell, but at this point, given our resource consents team has been running on a pretty thin number of planners, and we've been using contractors very heavily, like for quite a number of years, I don't believe at this point that it's going to have an impact on staff. But that's what I'm seeing at the moment. Yeah,
Can you give us a time frame as to when you expect the implications from the Planning Act to manifest themselves on the workload?
It depends when that rolls out. So that would have to come into, because we're going to have a lot of transitional period between the TRMP and the new Planning Acts, and that's going to be a lot of implementation as to that transition period. That may not be foreseen for another, I don't know if you have anything more to add, Leif, because I know you've been working on it, but whether that's could be another 2 to 4 years until we see that, but maybe you have something to add.
Just to clarify a couple of things, yeah, we're probably looking at 28, 29 before we start getting a transfer between the two processes. I guess we've also got to be a little careful. The government hasn't been completely truthful on what they're calling permitted activities. There's now 2 classes of permitted activities. There's the, yeah, you can do it. And then there's the, I'll provide us some information, we'll audit it and you can do it, which is effectively what was previously called a controlled activity. But so they're getting their consent numbers down, but that doesn't mean that we won't have work to do in that space. So we're still trying to understand how that may work. So we're likely to see those permitted activities, if you provide information, will probably primarily be in the land use space rather than in the environment space. So we'll see what happens.
Are there any further questions regarding this report? And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Melling, thank you. Thank you so much, Katrina. It's always a challenge in that whole consenting space, especially around staffing. And I also note, following on from Councillor Neubar's comments, is the increase in potentially in compliance that we could have coming out of having more permissive rules around consenting, and we're going to need planners that are going to have to be able to follow up on those. So we try and think we're going to make a saving somewhere, and it just winds up costing us more, it seems, in the end, which is a bit distressing. So thank you very much, Katrina. Appreciate all your feedback today. Matt. Pardon?
We have a mover and a seconder for the minutes and a mover and a seconder for the motion.
For receiving the Building Assurance Manager's report, all those in favour? Against? Motion carried. Thank you so much for the reminder.
Shall we do the minutes while we're at it?
Pardon?
Shall we pass the minutes while we're at it?
I think you are correct. Thank you very much. So for passing of both sets of minutes, all those in favour? Any against? Motion carried. Thank you very much for that. So Matt, would you like to take us through your report, please?
Yes. Morning all, through you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of things that I guess have come up since my report I wrote it in February. There has been a slight increase in building consent applications in the past month, so that was sort of reassuring, other than I don't know what the fuel crisis is going to do to that. I just heard yesterday that sort of petroleum-based materials like for plumbing pipes are going up 30%. So whether that's going to slow things down, I guess time will tell. There's been no updates on the proposed legislative changes, and as you'll see through this report, there's quite a few coming. So there's still a lot of detail we're waiting on there to so we can do a bit of planning around staffing. We've lost a few staff in the last 6 months. We lost one to Nelson and 2 to the standalone Building Consent Authority. So there's 2 of them operating at the moment, I think, and another one nearly got its accreditation. So retaining staff's pretty difficult, pretty hard at the moment. So not quite sure what to do there. But with some of these changes coming from the government, we're expecting with the proportionate liability that we should take away a bit more liability from council, and we may have less inspections to do or lighter touch on building consents. So until that time comes, don't know. Granny flats, we've had 8 applications or PIM applications. 2 have been issued. I think we've got 2 more to look at, and 2 have been withdrawn. So there's a few of them going in, but we're finding that a bit of a challenge, or the people applying are finding it a bit of a challenge because it's quite onerous. There's a lot of rules to follow. There's some good guidance out there, but MB are updating that guidance because of even since January they've found a few issues that they haven't quite covered. Group home builders had indicated that there was an increase in sale of house land packages, but that was before the fuel crisis, so hopefully they'll continue building. That's about it. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take some questions.
Okay, Councillor Morgan.
Yeah, my question's around looking here, your workload's down about 50% over the last 5 years. Your overall team, are you 50%? 75?
We're 1, 2, 3. We're probably about 40% down.
40%.
So actually, just bear in mind these figures are only up until March. So by the time we get to the end of the year, we should be around. We'll still be short, probably 100.
So your team, I'm thinking that some of them might be retired, tradies and that that move on into the type of program that you run. your age profile would be relatively high compared with, you know, other industries perhaps. How are you seeing the people being trained out there that may come into your workforce?
Currently, there isn't a lot of training other than, you know, coming off the tools or architectural design, that type of thing. There is a qualification that we all hold, but it's really only councils that are putting people through that. You know, when we start off with builders and architects, have pretty much got most of the knowledge, but then we really dig deep into the legislation and the building codes and stuff. So that's what they learn on, you know, as part of being here. So there's no real progression from school or there's just nothing other than we have had talks over the years with Nelson Polytech to see if, you know, we can somehow get some of their students in and come out with us for a day talking to builders, see if we can get apprentices out, come and spend a week with us and see what we do. And
so, Madam Chair, my comment really is we haven't got into HR yet. I haven't written my note about our HR structure and how we, for instance, address training. But I do feel we need a paper that's quite comprehensive around, you know, not only staff, the issues that they're facing, but also what our commitments are to training people.
Yeah, that's also a thing that builds up over time, that kind of knowledge as you with the each department. Does anybody else have any other questions? Councillor Mellon.
I'm happy to move the report. Matt, thanks. It always makes interesting reading. How long does it take you to train someone? I thought it was a number of years.
Yeah, we can generally get, say, an inspector, we can get them on the ground within 12 months. Coming from a building background, it's a bit quicker that way, but processes, you're probably up to sort of 12 months to 2 years. And that's where I'm talking about simple builds as well. It's not, not the commercial space, you're probably 3 years before you can even get onto the commercial. Architecturally design, it can take up to 3 years. Yeah, it's quite significant.
Councillor Woods.
Thank you, and I'm happy to second. Matt, just what's the mood around the coffee pot for building consent? So when your inspectors are talking to the builders and tradies, we're discussing this in terms of our planning, but are we seeing depression out there, or is this a blip? Are we going to come back, do you think? I'm not asking for a firm number, but just what's the mood out there?
Yeah, I'm unsure, other than just talking to some of the group home builders that over the last 12 months with interest rates being high, it was a problem. And then they've come down, then there was more interest, and now they're looking at their numbers increasing over the next 12 months, but that was before the fuel crisis. So just don't know. And I think that's sort of part of Katrina's report, with the reason why they got so many limbs is, they must be buying existing houses rather than rebuilds. Like our renovations have gone up, consents have gone up quite significantly. So people are hanging on to their houses, I guess, and not building new. So yeah, it's a tough one.
Right, Councillor Newbauer.
Thank you. Nice to see you again, Matt.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Been a few years.
Yeah.
So you're the building inspector.
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Hey, do you measure client satisfaction with the service that your compliance team is providing?
That you're talking, the compliance team. So yeah, we do a customer satisfaction survey every year. Can't remember if it's specifically around the compliance work we do. I'd have to check that, but definitely for everything, everything else we do.
Just wonder whether it might be worthwhile doing
to
understand, if there are any shortcomings somewhere, know what areas to focus on in your training.
Yep. No, cool. Thanks.
Are there any further questions? Matt, I've got one. I'm just curious, you mentioned earlier that independent contractors working on the building consents, and I recall going back in time that there was some conversation about council was going to be left with the ones that were more costly to deal with. And the building firms were going to be taking the simpler ones. And so we had a real concern about how that was going to pan out over time.
Yep.
Now that there are two operating in the area, what sort of thing are we seeing in that space?
For us, for Tasman Refining, I think there's 8 on the books at the moment, so it's not a huge amount. But in Nelson, I think Nelson's got a similar amount, so it's not a huge impact at the moment. But we are sort of expecting a few more, but not a whole lot. GJ's, there's a few companies in here quite happy with the way we work, and they just want to continue working with us. So yeah, they still get they still get a good service from us. So there's no real concern at this stage.
Oh, super, thank you. Well, I think that's it. We have a mover and a seconder, and I might even remember to put the motion this time. Like put the motion that we receive the building assurance manager's report. All those in favour? Any against? Motion carried. So we are at the end of our agenda. So that was very quick, everybody. So just a couple of things. We will be carrying on with the full council meeting from, do we have a time to follow this? But we are going to have a break around 11 for those online and in the public forum. We'll be aiming to start 11 so that we can do the full council. There has actually been some information put out on the website to let people know that we would be carrying on if we were through this earlier. I'd like to thank all those staff that have reported today, and for all those members with their questions. It's always an interesting process, and I think even, continue to sit around the table, you learn something more from everybody's questions every time we sit around this room together. Just a note, there are also apparently ELT have shouted some hot cross buns for morning tea. So no, it's not at the cost to the ratepayer. This is on them. Pardon? Oh, well, I was told to let you all know. No, I was told to say it. So. Yes, Councillor Morgan.
Madam Chair, my request is a familiar one. In terms of our meeting, and we're finished early today, albeit we're bringing forward a meeting, I would like to see at council and committee level our annual program mapped by the month in terms of agenda items we're addressing. To give us, there was a paper distributed this week, I think it was by Sue, discussing the policies in relation to the committees, and it set out our duties as governors, and some of them were legislative, regulation, compliance, etc. I think it's pretty clear to me, management need to put up the matrices for all of the committees showing key agenda items that we can view. We need to see them that they're business aligned at the end of the financial year, that we make and meet on agenda items that are where required, like the audit committee. We make the appropriate decisions in the cycle. So I'd like to see a bit of effort in that, because I personally, and I've said it before, I'm not happy coming to meetings where we're not using the time well. We're far too busy. I certainly am, and I want to utilise my time. And I'm sure you're all the same. Kia ora.
Point noted. I think we noted that each time. Right, so we have a closing karakia. Kia hiki, ti kōrero. My glasses on, that'll help. Kia wātia, kia mama, ti manawa o te tangata. Kia kia te ara mo tātou e ora kia rongo, kia ranga, kia tina, hui e, tai ki e. Let the discussions be lifted clear away and ease the hearts of people, keep focused in the path of life. Peace is upheld. Say yes, bind together, and it is so. Thank you for your time, everybody.